Today we are going to set up Microsoft Windows Server 2016 inside VirtualBox. There's a couple of prerequisites that we need. One is VirtualBox installed. Also, your BIOS has to be enabled to enable 64-bit virtualization. Maybe the trickiest part of this whole thing is nothing technical, it's downloading a license key. So Microsoft Windows Server is a product that you have to purchase. However, we can get a free license because we're an educational institution. You can get a version just for learning, essentially. To do that, we have to come to imagine.microsoft.com, and there's a link in the instructions for the specific software product. So I'm not signed in yet. I'm going to select my language. English sounds good. We are going to use the standard 64-bit version. So it tells me to sign in to download. So click that sign in link. If you don't have a Microsoft account, you'll have to create one. If you do have a Microsoft account and it's not linked to your educational email, you'll have to follow the on-screen instructions in order to get that. So looks like I didn't have to enter my password, it remembered me. So I can do two things. I can download. I have to select my language again, product version, standard. So the download is big. You can see a pop-up got blocked. I can allow that pop-up. I could download that. That download is going to be a big file. It's going to be several gigabytes. So you're going to need some space on your computer to download all this stuff. The Windows Server 2016, it's a DVD image that you're downloading. It's 5.5 gigabytes. Okay, so I'm going to assume that I've already got that downloaded because I do. If you're doing this for the first time, you will need to download that file. I'm going to click Get Key, and here's a product key that is specific to me. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it somewhere. I'm going to keep that in a safe location. So don't share that product key with anybody else. You have to use it. It's unique to you. If you share this, other people could use it and they would lock you out of it, essentially. So you don't want to do that. So I'm going to close that web browser now, and I'm going to drag VirtualBox over. So I've got the two things that I really need now. I've got my VirtualBox. I've got VirtualBox configured. I also have the license key and download from imagine.microsoft.com. So now I'm going to go through essentially this process in VirtualBox to set up this virtual machine. So I'm going to click New, and I'm going to name this Server 2016. I'm going to call it V2 because I already have. Actually, let me just delete that. Remove. Delete all files. I'll name it Server 2016 to match the instructions exactly. So I'm going to choose Microsoft Windows, and for the version, there's no Windows Server 2016 on here, so I'm going to choose Windows 10 64-bit. It may take VirtualBox a couple months to update the software before Server 2016 shows up on that list. So I'm going to click Next. Memory size, I'm going to choose 2048. Windows Server takes up a lot of RAM, so don't go under 2 gigabytes. It may not ever boot up. I'm going to leave the option selected to create a virtual hard disk. It's basically just a file on your computer. A VirtualBox disk image is perfectly fine. Dynamically allocated is what you want to save space on your computer. And I'm going to say a maximum of 32 gigabytes. So when I click create, it's not going to create a 32 gigabyte file on my computer. It'll create a few, essentially megabyte file maybe right now. But as we start using that disk, that file on our computer is going to grow and grow up to a maximum of 32 gigabytes. So that's good. I wait, it completes. So now I need to change the settings. So I'm going to right click on that server 2016, click settings, and first thing that I'm going to do is come to storage. So I've got this CD or DVD icon that's currently empty. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to click the disk icon, and I'm going to choose virtual optical disk file. So find that Windows Server 2016 x64 DVD ISO file you downloaded. Click open, and it will attach it. I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, it just took a second. It shouldn't say empty. You should see that Windows Server DVD file there. So that's good. I'm good to go so far. I'm going to click OK. It's saving settings. It's going. VirtualBox is running slow today. I don't know why. That should take a fraction of a second. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start to start booting up this virtual machine. So I see this VirtualBox flash. That's essentially your BIOS. Now I see a Windows logo. So Windows is starting. Here's a key thing. That file that you downloaded, here's what you do not want to do. You do not want to come into my OneDrive. Alright, OneDrive, server, my virtual machines. Here's my file explorer. I don't just want to double click on Windows Server and double click setup.exe. Do not do that. If you do that, you will erase everything on your computer. You must install this through VirtualBox. So you have been warned. Okay, so in VirtualBox, I see the setup menu. I like English, time and currency, English, keyboard input, US, all that looks good. Click next. I'm going to install now. So the setup is starting. So you can see this virtual machine is running essentially along with my desktop. So my desktop system is the host, Windows Server, and VirtualBox is the guest. So I have to enter in my license key now. Got to enter the whole thing before you can click next. It'll validate that license key. Now here is a critical point. You want the desktop experience. So by default, Windows Server 2016 Standard will be selected. You want the desktop experience. That's going to give you the graphical user interface. The desktop experience is good for learning how to administer Windows servers. If you're in a big corporation, maybe you don't need the graphical user interface for a lot of these machines, but we want that desktop experience. So we're going to click Next. Now I want you to very carefully read through all of these license terms. So that, just kidding. Just click I accept and click Next. So I'm going to choose custom. We're not upgrading anything. There's nothing on here. So choose custom. We're going to use that drive. Click next. Okay, get my click. There we go. So it's copying files. It's going to get everything ready. I'm going to pull that over to the side, scroll down, look at these instructions. We're doing everything correctly. We got desktop experience, we got a drive. That says 20. Some of these screenshots, I just use the VirtualBox defaults. As VirtualBox software is updated, they provide different recommendation and different defaults. So this is just going to take a while. I'm just going to pause the video until there's something for me to do. Okay, so a few minutes have passed. My machine's going to reboot. I don't really need to do anything. I'm just going to let it reboot on its own, and it's going to continue the setup. Okay, the virtual machine had a reboot twice, and now it takes me here. It wants me to choose an administrator password. Now, you can't just put lowercase password. If I just type that and click finish, it's going to tell me that it's not strict enough. So I think this message is kind of funny. The password you type doesn't meet the password complexity requirement set by the administrator for your network or group. Well, I am the administrator, and I think that password is perfectly fine for testing purposes, but built-in defaults don't let me use it. So I'm going to choose one, capital P, ASSW0RD. See if that's complex enough. Okay, that one works. So here's a pro tip. Save your password. It's okay to write it down this time. I'm going to come to my VirtualBox settings, and I'm going to put my password in there. Admin password is password. Okay, so that way, whenever I boot this virtual machine up, I can know what it actually used. So it says press Control-Alt-Delete to unlock. Well, if you try that on your machine, you're going to lock or unlock your host operating system, not the guest. So we can send that Control-Alt-Delete to the virtual machine from the input menu. If we choose keyboard, we can select Insert Control-Alt-Delete. If you want to be fancy, figure out what that host and delete key means. So if I do that, now it'll let me log in. So I log in, the administrator, and then I'll use the password I just created. It'll boot up, so it'll take some time the first time. Sure, I want my network to be discoverable. It's fine with me. You can click yes. Now one of the first things that'll pop up is a server manager. This is how you actually start to configure this Windows server. Now we can close this server manager, and it kind of looks like a regular Windows desktop. We have the trusty Internet Explorer there. We've got our start menu. If you ever need to start your server manager again, you can find it just like the other programs. Server manager. We'll use this later. So take some time to explore the interface. See what differences you can find between the Windows desktop and Windows Server. Be able to find the server manager because you're going to use it quite a bit. If we look at the server manager, we can see the roles and server groups. We have file and storage services. We've got some things that maybe need attention already, but that's okay. Can we ping Google? Let's try that. Let's open up a command prompt. Ping google.com. Okay, can't quite yet. So our network is not being shared. See if you can ping yours. We can troubleshoot as needed. Let's look at our network adapters. So I want the view network connections, just like the desktop. So here I've got this. I'm going to click Properties. I'm going to look at IP version 4. It's set to obtain an IP address automatically. So is it getting an IP address? Let's run ipconfig. So I do have an IP address. So that's good. but we cannot find the host, google.com. So see if it works for you. Depending if you're connecting over a wired connection or Wi-Fi, your network may or may not work immediately. It's okay if it doesn't work right away. Sometimes it just takes some time. I'm going to look at my VirtualBox settings. I'm going to look at the network. Attached to NAT, that's good. I have some, I'm running a VPN right now. I think that's what's throwing it off. That's okay. I'm going to pause the video real quick. Alright, I resumed the video, middle of my ping. But once I disconnected from a VPN, I have a VPN connection to my home network right now to transfer files and things. Once I turn that VPN connection off, I can successfully ping Google from within my Server 2016 virtual machine. So that looks good. So how many network adapters does this computer have? Well, just one. It's a wired connection. So where is this wired connection? So this connection is virtual. There's no physical Ethernet cable. It's just a virtual wired connection. Even if you're using Wi-Fi on your laptop in your virtual machine, your virtual machine is still going to show that wired connection there by default. So this is good. So take some time just to play around with it. We will do more with this server with this Server 2016 virtual machine in later labs.